Finding your way to your starting position. Have a bit of a wriggle, maybe sway through your shoulders, maybe sway your head, maybe wriggle side to side through your sitting bones. And then if you feel that you'd like to, you could let your eyes close. Taking a moment to notice your connection with the ground, the places where your body makes that connection with the ground beneath you. Being held and supported by the earth beneath you. Bringing your awareness to the inside of your body, noticing how you're feeling inside your body. Are there places that you know need extra TLC? Acknowledging any places that need some extra attention. Letting your face be soft. Letting your shoulders relax. Let your belly be soft. And then see if you can start to bring your focus to your breath. Observing each breath in, observing each breath out. So tonight I will invite you to practice what's known as the golden flame breath. And this one brings the focus to the pelvic floor area, and it's very good for also helping to activate the base chakra, which is the first chakra located at the base of your spine and the base of your pelvis. So of course, you're more than welcome to simply keep your awareness on your breath or your body or your connection with the ground. But if you would like to practice this golden flame breath with me, then visualize a golden flame that sits low inside your lower belly. And when you breathe in, imagine that golden flame is pointing downwards as you soften into the pelvic floor area. And when you exhale, imagine that golden flame turns to point upwards as you gently hug and lift your pelvic floor muscles in and up. As you breathe in, golden flame points down, softening into the pelvic floor area, softening and widening. When you exhale, imagine that golden flame turns to point up as you gently hug and lift from your pelvic floor. And see if you can continue that for a few more rounds. So you're softening into the pelvic floor with the inhale. Golden flame points down. And then you're engaging your pelvic floor muscles. Hug and lift with the exhale. That's when the golden flame points up. And see if you can keep the rest of your body soft, letting your face be soft, letting your jaw be loose. Let your shoulders relax. Maybe a few more rounds of golden flame breath, softening with your inhales Hug and lift with your exhale. You can keep going with that golden flame breath, or you might want to let go of that practice now. Feel free to keep your eyes closed, maybe starting to make some circles with your torso. If you're seated, if you are lying down, you could be hugging your knees in and rocking from side to side, or you could gradually make your way up to sitting. And if you're circling, however big or however small you want your circles to be, and moving at your own pace. You can change direction whenever you're ready. Okay, so finding your way gradually back to center. So I'll invite you to make some movement through your shoulders. So this might be maybe even taking your hands a little bit behind you, taking your shoulder blades a little closer in together as you take your shoulders back. And I'm going to show you this super slow to begin with, but you can speed it up at any time. So maybe taking shoulder blades closer in together and then maybe coming forwards as though you're trying to bring the fronts of your shoulders in together. So you can do this really slow, or you can make it faster if you want to. And then I'll invite you to take your arms out to the sides with your palms facing up. Now, if you want to have a little soft bend in your elbows, go ahead, especially if tension starts to creep into your shoulders. Starting with your palms facing up, take a breath in. As you breathe out, rotate your arms around until your palms face down, or maybe even pointing your thumbs down towards the floor. Just see how far you can go with that, or how far you want to go. And with an inhalation, turning up, whole of your arms are rotating. With your exhale, turning down. Now you could stay with this so you're going the same way with both arms, or maybe change it so that one arm goes up and one arm goes down. And then you can swap over. So the other arm goes down as the other arm goes up. Just for something a little different. Checking in with how that feels. If tension's starting to creep in, where can you soften? And if you have changed it over, maybe having both arms, both hands facing up with your next breath in, you might like to bring some movement in through your spine. So maybe taking your chest forward and lifting your gaze. And then as you exhale, rotate your arms, palms face down, and maybe round into your spine, lowering your chin. If your arms are starting to fatigue here, feel free to release them down, or however you'd like to move. Or maybe one or two more times with your breath. And with your next breath in, maybe reaching your arms up overhead, reaching towards the ceiling. With your exhale, you could take that into a side stretch, coming across. Finding your way back to the center with your inhalation and reach. And then taking that to the next side as you breathe out. Perhaps one more each side. Follow your own breath. Okay, and then next time you find your way to center, reach up tall so you could almost touch your ceiling. Reach, 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 and then turn your palms out and slowly releasing. Let your arms come down. Find a place to rest your hands. And then if you do want to make any more movement through your shoulders, then go ahead, moving forward and back, or maybe circling. Excellent. Okay, so maybe finding your way onto your hands and your knees. Sorry, I'm just looking over here because Beatrice is just going to have to move. Beatrice, no. Say hi, Beatrice. Hi, Beatrice. There you go. Over that way. All right, so maybe coming down to your hands and your knees next. If you're coming, you could also be coming onto your elbows and your knees. If you don't want to be on your hands and your knees, that's fine. If you are on your hands, maybe spread your fingers out wide. You could begin to sway side to side here. So maybe making some movement, swaying side to side. Some movement through your spine. Moving through your hip joints and your shoulder joints. And depending on how much you are swaying side to side, you might even be able to look back towards your feet. And maybe looking back towards your feet on each side. Great. And perhaps starting to make some movements to what we did a moment ago, similar to a moment ago when we were seated. Arching up through your spine, letting your head lower down. And then as you inhale, lifting your tailbone, middle of your back lowers, and then looking out in front. So with the exhale, rounding up, arching like a cat, head lowers. And with your inhale, lift your tailbone. Keep your shoulders soft as you look out in front. Now, if you remember the golden flame breath that we did a few minutes ago, see, if you want to, see if you can coordinate this movement with golden flame breath. So as you breathe in, you're looking forwards. That's when the pelvic floor will be soft. Golden flame points down. With the exhale, golden flame points up and then lifting through the pelvic floor muscles. It is a little more challenging to do this while you're moving, but I just thought I'd put it out there if you want to give it a try. Inhale, you're looking forward, pelvic floor soft. Exhale, lower your head, arching up and then engaging pelvic floor muscles. Perhaps one or two more. And then whenever you feel ready to pause and rest, you could sit back towards your heels and maybe find your way to child's pose, perhaps finding a place to rest your forehead. So if your forehead is not coming all the way down to your mat, you could stack your fists, you could have a yoga block there or a couple of folded blankets or a cushion, finding a place where your forehead can rest. And it's totally fine whether you want to have your knees in together or maybe you want to take knees wider apart. Maybe closing your eyes for a breath or two or longer. And checking in with how your body's feeling. Checking in with your breath. checking in with how you're feeling in terms of your energy. How are you feeling energetically? And sometimes more rest could be just what you need. So if you do need to rest for longer, feel free to stay there. If you do want to begin to move a little bit more, then come back onto all fours. So I thought we might do, this is puppy with a twist. If you are on your knees, take your hands a little bit further in front. So rather than having your hands right beneath your shoulders, if you take your hands a little bit further forward, then there's more space between your wrist and your knee. So just to create a little more space there, I'm going to start with my left arm, but you can choose whichever side you want to begin with. Taking one arm out to the side, reaching out through your fingertips. As you breathe in, perhaps lifting that arm to reach up towards the ceiling. As you breathe out, taking that arm down, bending your elbows, taking that arm through the space as you lower your forehead towards the floor. You might like to do that 2 more times. So as you breathe in, reaching your arm out, maybe upwards. And with your exhale, then bring that arm down through the space, moving into the twist. So one more if you wish. Next time as you lower down, you might pause here. So if you're able to bring your forehead, not your forehead, the side of your head all the way down to the floor, then go ahead. So shoulders connecting to the floor, head is resting on the floor. You might want to keep the other hand planted to the floor here, or another option could be to reach that arm upwards. Or another option could be to bring that hand to the back of your waist. So a few options there. Feel free to close your eyes if you wish. Notice where you can feel the sensation of your breath. You might even be able to still have that connection with your pelvic floor as you breathe. Notice where you can feel the twist, or maybe noticing a stretch. You're welcome to stay for longer, or if you did have that arm lifted or behind your waist, then bring that hand back down to your mat. Planting that hand firmly, pressing into that hand as you gradually find your way back to all fours. So let's do that same movement for the second side. So next arm, or first of all, just make sure your hands are a little bit more forward from your shoulders. Next arm reaches out to the side. As you breathe in, maybe reaching up. As you exhale, take that arm down through the space. Lower your head towards the floor. And if you wish, you could do that another 2 times. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower, coming into the twist. Maybe one more. Checking how that feels for your body. And this time, if you want to pause, bring your head down to rest, shoulder and arm connecting to the floor. With your other hand, that hand could stay planted where it is, or you could reach that arm up, or another option could be to bring your arm to the back of your waist. You might like to close your eyes, noticing what sensations are present in your body. And see if, as you breathe, can you still keep that connection with your pelvic floor as you breathe. You don't necessarily have to be doing golden flame breath. You can if you want to, of course. Just see if you can feel maybe a difference between the inhales and the exhales. Okay, you're welcome to stay for longer, or you might bring that hand back down to the floor. Plant your hand firmly, pressing down into that hand to gradually find your way back to all fours. And from here, I'll invite you to walk your hands in, come to either a kneeling position, or you could bring your legs forward. Lifting your arms out in front, and then perhaps making some movement like circles into your wrists, or wriggling your fingers, or both. And then if you'd like more of a stretch through your hands or your fingers, interlace your fingers. Press your palms outwards. Take a moment to pause here. You could have your eyes closed, or you might be looking just above your fingers. When you next breathe in, lifting your arms slowly upwards. Palms could be facing towards the ceiling. As you exhale, releasing your arms out to the sides and down. Taking your hands behind, interlace your fingers again. With an inhale, lifting your arms away from your back. It might just be a millimeter or two. Exhale and release. Okay, have a little wriggle here if you like. I'll invite you to walk your hands forward once again, maybe tucking your toes under. If you'd like a stretch through your toes and your feet. With your toes tucked under, you can start to sit back towards your heels. See if you're feeling a stretch there, and then coming forwards. So it could be moving forward and back. You can stay with that, forward and back, or as you next sit back towards your heels, you could stay there, or maybe sway from one side to the other. If you're swaying, you might also notice how you're moving through your spine from side to side. Option to stay with any of those, maybe swaying side to side, maybe moving forward and back. Option to release your toes out if it's not feeling that good for you right now. If it's too much of a stretch, you can release your toes out at any point. Or some of you may like to start to head towards downward dog. So especially for downward dog, fingers spread out wide. Pressing down into the balls of your feet as you begin to lift your hips. And you might like to do this a few times. You might want to lift your knees and then lower. You could stay with that, lifting and lowering, or maybe starting to send your sitting bones towards the ceiling. If you're coming into downward facing dog, you could pedal, pressing one heel towards the floor, bending your opposite knee. See how that feels through your legs, and then switch over to the next side. Maybe looking towards your toes if you're in downward dog now. And of course, you can lower your knees down at any point, or you could come to child's pose at any point. Or if you're looking for something maybe a little stronger, then press both heels down towards the floor, whether you're straight through your legs or whether your knees are bent. As you next breathe in, lift both heels up, bend into your knees, and then coming forward into plank pose. So aiming to bring your shoulders above your wrists, aiming to bring your body into a nice long line. Knees down, could be half plank. Pausing here, breathing. When you're ready to next breathe in, you could come back to downward dog, hips lifting high. Sending your sitting bones upwards, maybe swaying, maybe pedaling. And then if you want to do plank pose, one more time, lift your heels up, bend your knees, and waving forward into plank or half plank. Remember to breathe. Lower your knees down if you haven't already. Untuck your toes. You might want to give your toes a wriggle as well. And then lower all the way down to the front of your body. Have a wriggle once you're all the way down to the front. Great. And then your hands might kind of be a little bit under your shoulders. You could take them slightly forward from there if you want to, or you could keep them right where they are. I invite you to take your feet and your legs perhaps a little wider and aiming to have the front of your pelvis well connected to the floor. So feel that you're pressing your front of your pelvis and your pubic bone down to the floor. When you next breathe in, begin to lift up. It might just be a millimeter or two, looking out in front, lifting your chest. Exhale and lower. So if you want to do this as cobra, you might like to do this a few more times. Inhale, lifting. Can just be a mini cobra. Exhale, lowering. It's totally up to you how much you want to lift. Check how that feels for your lower back. Don't push it if it doesn't feel right. See if you can follow your breath for this movement, lifting with the inhale and lowering with the exhale. Next time that you lower down, pressing down into your hands so you can lift your pelvis away from the floor, finding your way back to child's pose. So that could be with knees together or maybe knees apart, finding a place where you would like to rest your forehead. And see if you can direct your breath more into the back area of your ribs, or maybe the back of your waist, or maybe even noticing your breath, the sensation of your breath in the back of your pelvis. It might just be a very subtle sensation. Okay, know that you can stay resting here for longer. It's totally your choice. This might just be what you need this evening. However, if you do feel that you would like to begin to come up from there, then walking your hands a little closer in, gradually finding your way up. There's no rush at all. Please take your time. So next I thought we might do some standing movement using a chair, or it could be a coffee table, or it could be a couple of yoga blocks. I'm just going to bring my chair here and I'll adjust my camera as well. Okay, so I thought we might do some standing sun breaths, and from there we'll come into a forward fold, and from there we might work with some balance as well, all linked in together. So you could be facing towards the seat of your chair. I'm just going to be facing towards the camera, but I will turn and look towards the chair at some point. But just so you can see me clearly, I'll be facing here. But you can have your chair right in front of you. And starting with your feet about the width of your hips, feet parallel, have a wriggle through your toes. Maybe lifting up all of your toes, spreading them out wide, lowering them back down, and then you might like to sway side to side. Noticing the connection of the soles of your feet with the ground. Remember what I said at the beginning about the golden flame breath helps to activate the base chakra? Same with your feet and your legs. Pelvic floor area, base of your pelvis, all the way down physically, is a connection with your base chakra. That connection from the pelvic floor and down to the earth. All right, and then if you want to, you could also be swaying forward and back, maybe lifting your heels or lifting your toes or both. Beatrice, you're really making a bit of an appearance this evening, aren't you? All right, so once you've lowered all the way down to the floor, bend your knees, turn your palms out to the side, press down into the soles of your feet as you breathe in, lifting your arms and reaching all the way up towards the sky. As you exhale, lower your hands in front, palms face down, bending your knees. So letting your movement be guided by your breath. Your movement is an expression of your breath. Reaching with your inhale and then lowering with your exhale, getting a bit closer to the ground. You could have your eyes closed, or if your eyes are open, you could be gazing towards your fingertips. Beautiful. Okay, maybe one last one. Reach up as high as you can as you breathe in. And then gradually lowering as you breathe out. So if you have a chair, bring your hands to your chair. If you have blocks, bring your hands to your blocks. If you don't have either, you could also bring your hands to your knees. I'm going to use my chair. Okay, so starting with knees bent. As you breathe in, press down into the soles of your feet again. Think of the movement starting from the ground, so the energy is coming from the ground up through the soles of your feet and up through your legs and into your spine that way, all the way up through the crown of your head. As you breathe in, press down, straighten through your legs, lengthen through your spine. You might be looking towards the seat of your chair or your hands. And then exhale, bend your knees and lower down slightly. So again, it's a movement of your breath. Press down into your feet as you inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bend your knees, get that tiny bit closer to the floor. There's also a spinal wave happening here, similar to what we did seated and similar to what we did with cat-cow when we're on all fours. See if you can feel that spinal wave happening. Movement is guided by your breath. Okay, so if you do want to try some warrior 3 here, can totally stay with this one if you want to. If you want to try Warrior 3, as you next breathe in, taking one leg out behind. With your exhale, bend your knees and your elbows as you come back down from there. So if you're doing this without a chair or blocks, you could have your hands on your knees or elbows to your thighs. Switching over to the next side with your inhale. Exhale, bend your knees. Get that bit closer to the ground. You might feel a stretch happening through that standing leg. You can follow your breath, or if you do want to pause in your Warrior 3, you can totally do that. If you're pausing, just let your breath continue to flow in its own rhythm. The good thing about having blocks or having the chair is there's not as much emphasis on balancing, but you still will feel that balance of your body. Okay, maybe one more. If you do have your hands on a chair, maybe you just want to try reaching your arms forward as well. See how that balance feels. Okay, lowering your foot, bend your knees. You might want to step your feet away from your chair a little bit further and take a stretch through your spine as you send your sitting bones away from you. Maybe a breath or two here. And then gradually bend your knees, and you can lower your knees all the way down to the ground. Hope you enjoyed that one. Okay, I'm just going to move my chair to the side. I'll invite you to come down onto your back. So if you want to, and we'll just be a few minutes before we head towards Shavasana. So if you had enough movement and you want to go straight into Shavasana, then please go ahead. But otherwise, if you'd like a little more movement, come onto your back with your knees bent and your feet planted to the floor. So we've done this spinal movement in so many different ways tonight. We did the spinal, so it's spinal flexion and extension. We did that seated. Then we did it on all fours, cat-cow. And then we did it with hands on the chair in a standing position. Now we're going to do it with what I call pelvic tilt. So it's all the same thing. It's just the way that gravity works, and also we have the ground beneath us when we're lying on our back, so there's not as much movement. But this is another great one for bringing in that golden flame breath. And so you don't even have to think of it as golden flame breath. It's just a softening of the pelvic floor, and that's usually with an inhalation, and then it's a lifting of the pelvic floor, usually with an exhalation. And that's just the way the breathing diaphragm and the pelvic diaphragm work together. All right, so if you have your feet planted about the same width as your hips, so your knees point upwards. If you want to change that, if you want to take your feet wider or bring your knees in, that's totally fine too. And then you could have your hands on your belly, or maybe hands on your hips, or you could let your arms come down to the floor. First of all, being in the neutral position, so the natural curves of your spine, you will notice a little space between your lumbar spine and the floor when you're in neutral. Breathing in the neutral position. As you breathe out, tilt your pelvis back to press your lower back down into the floor. As you come back to neutral, as you breathe in, then coming back to neutral. And then as you exhale, pressing your back down again. Now you could just continue with this movement If you do want to make it a little bit more complicated, or maybe not so complicated, you could also bring that movement of your pelvic floor or thinking of golden flame breath. So the inhale, you're in the neutral position. Let the pelvic floor area be soft. With the exhale, as you press your lower back to the floor, thinking of your pelvic floor muscles lifting. And then as you breathe in, pelvic floor area softens as you come back to neutral. If it's too complicated, you can just work with one or the other. Don't feel you have to coordinate everything. If it's just too much, that's okay. All right, so feel free to do a few more of these if you wish. And before you get ready for Shavasana, there might be some other movement you'd like to do, maybe hugging your knees in, maybe rocking side to side, or maybe some other movement. And then when you're ready, finding your resting position. So you could be lying on your back for Shavasana, maybe with cushions or something beneath your knees. It might be more comfortable for you lying on your front or lying on your side. Or if you still have your chair there nearby, you could have your legs elevated up on your chair. And if you have a blanket, you might have that over your body. If you have an eye pillow or eye cover, maybe for over your eyes. Sway from side to side, maybe swaying your head side to side, or wriggle through your shoulders, or your legs, or your arms. If you're lying on your back, maybe your arms are out to the sides with your palms facing up. Maybe you prefer having your hands connecting to your body. And there's no right or wrong. Remember, it's only what feels right for you. And that can be different at different times and different days. Finding a place and a position that feels most supportive. And if you feel ready and if you wish to, you could let your eyes close. Coming back to the natural flow of your breath. Letting go of all the practices now. Just observing breath flowing in, filling up your lungs, breath flowing out as your lungs empty. And it's totally okay if you do want to make any movements, or maybe if it feels right, surrendering to the feeling of stillness. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your toes. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your feet, your ankles, your lower legs. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your knees, your thighs, your hips. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your pelvis, your belly, and your navel center. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your solar plexus and your chest. Noticing the feeling of stillness in your shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands, fingers, and thumbs. Noticing the feeling of stillness inside your throat and your jaw. Noticing the feeling of stillness in the back of your head and your face and the inside of your head. Noticing the feeling of stillness through the whole of your body. Letting that feeling of stillness flow through your body as you let your body soften, surrendering to that feeling of stillness. I'm sharing some words from John O'Donohue. There is a voice within you that no one, not even you, has ever heard. Give yourself the opportunity of silence and begin to develop your listening in order to hear deep within yourself the music of your own spirit. You might like to take notice of how your body is making the connection with the ground beneath you, being held, being supported by the earth. And you might start to begin to deepen your breath. With each inhalation, perhaps a feeling that you're filling up your lungs completely, and perhaps a feeling that as you breathe out, you're emptying your lungs completely. No rush at all. Breathing is happening all by itself. Nothing you need to do. No effort required. And feel free to stay resting right where you are. If you do want to make some movement, maybe stretching out long, maybe hugging your knees in, maybe circling into ankles and wrists, or there might be some other way you'd like to move, or perhaps stillness. It's totally your choice. You can stay where you are, or if you would prefer to come up to sitting, then very gradually, without disturbing yourself too much, you can find your way there. You might like to find a place to bring your hands to your body. Either with eyes closed, or maybe you prefer to be looking downwards. There is a voice within you that no one, not even you, has ever heard. Give yourself the opportunity of silence and begin to develop your listening in order to hear deep within yourself the music of your own spirit. If you wish, inviting a feeling of gratitude into your heart space, letting that gratitude be like a light that shines outwards in all directions. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.